Hey folks, it's John Kraska with EveryLibrary, the EveryLibrary Institute. It is National Library Week 2025. Congratulations. We're making our way through it. It is Tuesday, the 8th of April here in the United States of America. It is, incidentally, Wednesday, April 9th in Australia, where two of our guests are coming from today to talk about our nonfiction week. National Library Week is a big deal in the library community. Everyone has a different one. Here in the United States, we're trying to pay a lot of attention right now to what's happening in the greater world of the Institute of Museum and Library Services and the threats to federal funding that are coming from the Trump administration's executive order to essentially close the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Folks, if you are as troubled by this as I am, and almost 100,000 people have taken an action here on saveimls.org. That's Save the Institute of Museum and Library Services.org. If you're as troubled about this as I am, please step up and take an action. We've been working with a lot of state library associations and other groups on talking to Congress about the statutory obligations of the Institute, and that means that you have to pay the grants, you have to make sure that the state libraries are properly funded, the museums and the other grant recipients are properly funded this fiscal year. We do all of our work here at EveryLibrary pro bono and for free. We are the National Political Action Committee for Libraries. You can find out what we're up to day in, day out, including all the breaking news. We've got some big things happening besides the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And I'm proud to say that we've been able to show up quite a bit around several crises recently. It also means that we are in need of some sincere fundraising this National Library Week. We are working on our Rapid Response Fund. We need to refill the coffers. Every time that we help save a state library budget, which we've done recently in a place like New Hampshire, or we can turn around a problem in a library where they've cut the funding, like in Fairhope, Alabama, or just showing up in places they're not much bigger than a wide spot in the road, because the library is the only built environment there. everylibrary.org/rapid lets us do the work. So, okay, team, National Library Week, happy here in the United States. I'm going to bring in two special guests for us, Anna Featherstone and Maggie Walters, part of our nonfiction week. We didn't talk about this in the green room. We've been doing a lot of literary fiction programming. We had a Library Lovers Week in February. We had our Banned Books Week back in October. But I wanted to do nonfiction. I wanted to do memoir. I wanted to do cookbook. I wanted to talk with people who are. My wife's got the pile of books by the bedside for the literary fiction. It's going to fall over and kill us one night. So this is my time, okay? But I need the news, Anna and Maggie, from Australia. What is going on there? Because of everything that's going on here, how are things with our Australian cousins?
Yeah, well, I think we're still in a pretty nice space. Like, our libraries are super vibrant, and they are the heart of the community. And like, I've recently been in a library where they have ukulele loans, and then our library locally, has a seed library. Our libraries, run heaps of author talks. They do so much for little kids. It's a really positive space, but there have been some pesky people trying to go down the US path. And people like the librarians, they're fighting back, but they're in a position that it's a much more positive environment. And I think Australia has an attitude of a fair go. So most people are able to say, hey, come on, stop being silly. Why are you borrowing those books and not returning them? Because our kids would like to know about, biology, or our kids would like this, or so we're not on your slippery slope yet, but obviously it's a danger for everyone. And the danger is around, I suppose, the whole thing, we know books improve communities. Books make you more empathetic. Books are so wonderful, and obviously that's why some people don't want them around.
That's right. Maggie, I said our Australian cousins, but you're from the U.S. originally. Are you fish out of water still, or what's going on there?
No, I've been here since '96. I grew up in Texas and spent time in Colorado as well. But I'm officially an Australian citizen, and I call this home. I love our socialized medicine. I love our 6-week national campaign for elections. It's really nice.
Yeah. And then in terms of the situation for libraries as you're seeing it in your neck of the woods over there.
I love my libraries. I suppose, having gotten back into the reading world, with my book and being able to present, I get so many opportunities to talk to people. And there is a warmth when you go into an Aussie library. My history in America isn't quite the same just because of the nature of my book. And I was actually probably really denied the opportunity to appreciate libraries in the States. But there is a warmth and just a welcoming atmosphere when you go into libraries. And like Anna was saying, the things that you can do that you would not normally think would go along with, a hardback book or something like that in a library, it's fabulous. It is a community.
That's fantastic. I mean, forgive me for not making the full intros when I brought you in. Let me take a second, dear listener, watcher, reader, okay, and make sure that you know who you're talking to. I'm going to go with Anna first. Anna Featherstone is a nonfiction author and publishing advisor, best known for her memoir, Honey Farm Dreaming, and the self-publishing guide, Look, It's Your Book. We'll talk about the Alliance for Independent Authors in a few minutes. As a mentor and a founder of Bold Authors, she empowers others to share their stories. She's also a nonfiction advisor to the Alliance for Independent Authors and a judge for several national book awards. So, Anna, why don't you give the wave?
Hey!
Fantastic. Maggie, I again apologize for not starting with the bios. Maggie Walters is the author of Split, A Life Shared, a powerful memoir about living with dissociative identity disorder. Her writing has earned international recognition, including a 2024 Goody Award for psychology and self-help. Maggie is an advocate for mental health awareness and credits creativity with saving her life. I'm really thrilled to have both of you here. Thanks for letting me dip right in to the conversation. But I do want to talk about your books, and I want to talk a little bit more about the creative process and get back to libraries too. Both of you do memoir. I love the opportunity to talk about memoir, and they're both very intensely personal experiences. What, Maggie, let me have you go first, made you decide to turn to private stories as your writing vehicle?
Look, initially it was really just a cathartic experience. I have always loved writing, and I have an opportunity up here to be involved in a really intense writing community. And I thought I would just write fiction. And I was like, my history's behind me. I don't want to deal with that. But I ended up going, I actually need to write my memoir, even if it's just an academic experience, just for the catharsis of it and to enjoy that. And it kind of took on a life of its own. And I had the whole thing written within about a year and a half. And then I met Anna and we got it published within about 6 months. And it was like, there you go. It's out there and it's changing lives. And I'm really happy about that. People are encouraged by it. They can see that, being labeled with someone with complex mental health challenges isn't life-ending. You can, if you get the right help and you've got the right support group and the right tribe around you, you can do anything just like anybody else can.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, so Split is your book, navigating and understanding your own life. I mean, there's a bit of remove from what I understand from memoir writers. You have to look outside of yourself, but you're also deeply involved in your own conversations with yourself. Was there a moment during this process that was maybe a breakthrough for you, that you said, okay, it's not just a personal action, it's a publishable action?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think when I shared it with a couple of people who I knew had complex trauma in their history and got perspective on that, and the resounding affirmation that I got from them that you need to share this. This isn't just for you. You need to share it with a bigger community. That was actually really affirming for me. And of course, then I had to delve into how am I going to tell this story so that people, because I don't want it to be just about the trauma. That was really important to me. The trauma is important because it's part of the story, but even more important is what goes on inside this head when I'm not neurotypical. So my brain functions very differently to other people. And how was I going to share that? And basically in Split, I kind of like open my brain up and go, here's how I think. And that's what most of it is. It's about how does my brain work? How do I process things each day and all that sort of stuff? And I mean, I've started getting opportunities to talk to psychologists, even some in the US, and present to their practices so they can get a practical perspective on what it's like to treat someone with DID. I meet people at talks who just want to be affirmed that they're not crazy. And so that's fabulous. It's great.
Well, finding common ground with other folks who have a similar situation. Also, just being not alone. The fact that everybody's got a little something going on. But can you talk a little bit?
Absolutely.
But dissociative identity disorder was a new term for me when I was
Okay.
approaching this conversation. Can you describe a little bit for our audience some of the clinical aspects of that?
Sure. So would you have heard of multiple personality disorder?
Yeah, but mostly, unfortunately, from like TV and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't
all the
think
crap on
it's
there. Yeah. It's not real. Okay, so there's a couple things that are required to develop DID or MPD. First is that it only happens to small children, usually under the age of 8 or 9, and that's because our brains are really creative at that age, and we have the plasticity and the malleability to think outside the square. So when the trauma hits, they're able to go, okay, I need to get out of this. And that's the other thing is they feel a child who's being traumatized in that way often feels like they can't escape. So then what they do is they go, okay, if I can't physically escape, what do I need to do to mentally escape? And alters develop.
There you go.
And then the third thing is mostly it happens with people who should be trusted. It's called betrayal trauma. So if parents, someone close to the family, and because of the intensity of the trust that's lost, that's just it. So those are the three key things that make up from a non-academic perspective how you might look at DID.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a clinician's perspective. This is your own story. I mean,
yeah, that's exactly right.
Can I ask you? I mean,
however, a clinician does write the foreword to Maggie's
Yes.
book.
Was that right? That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a human question. I mean, how do you take care of yourself when you're writing that personal story?
I have a therapist that I see for 2 hours every week.
There you go. I respect that tremendously. Yes.
Why are you laughing?
I love you so much, Maggie.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It's you know, I've kind of come to terms with the fact that, you know, over here in Australia, you only get a certain number of visits. I mean, our healthcare is phenomenal compared to what you have in America, but we get a certain number of visits each year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really fortunate to be able to see this person and to be taken care of the way I'm in. And I know that I will be in the system until I can't get out the front door anymore and go see him.
Sure.
It's a matter of managing my system. This is not something that will ever go away. And I think people try to medicate it away. They misdiagnose it and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, and the self-medicating goes on too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And so, yeah, see, now I've bunny trailed. What was the question?
No, you're absolutely lovely. You told me it was about how you take care of yourself during your writing process.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. I want to. I mean, Anna, the warmth that you have for Maggie, it's collegial. It's very familiar, and it looks like it's. I mean, it looks like it's honest and authentic. Let me take a minute with you and check in with you about Honey Farm Dreaming and your other work too, because
I'm happy to just talk about Maggie.
I mean, really, like we're here together because
yes.
It's interesting having you two put together because of your relationship as opposed to because of the topics of your book, you know? And I dig that. I like that you know each other. Sometimes I'm lucky in doing EveryLibrary Live. I get to help people meet cute. But since you already know each other and love each other, let's go, you know? So, Anna, Honey Farm Dreaming, humor, hardship, sustainable farming. I mean, I live in the suburbs. We're landlocked suburbs of Chicago. We're landlocked. I've got a double lot here. I'm lucky. Other people got 22 feet. You know, I don't know what even that is in meters, like 6.5. You know, the like sustainable farming. I'm all in. Tell me all about the book.
Yeah, so basically moved with my family when they were very young to 100 acres and started from scratch, learning everything about sustainability and went really deep, like basically thinking about the future world. So thinking what skills would our children need to be active members of the community to, and so I could turn from being a consumer into a producer. as well. And like, you know, learn actual valuable skills. Like, because if you drop most of us back in the 19th century, we'd be absolutely useless.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Me first, yeah.
Yeah. So I started from scratch, learning everything from beekeeping to all the useful plants. We had the biggest solar oven in the Southern Hemisphere, cooking food for people, and it turned into this big experimental farm and life. You know, we made organic balms, made herbal teas, all these things, and it was wonderful, like absolutely incredible for like the first 9 years. But then the last years, it was like this overwhelm of people, because we were also doing education, and we had over 10 years, like 100 backpackers live with us.
Wow.
And then we had farm stay guests, and then we had, because we needed to make a life and a living off the land as well, we had thousands of people on day trips. So in the end, it just became this overwhelming thing that was so beautiful, but also so hard. And at the end, well, as the experience went along, finally I was like, I need to write about this. And I also wanted to share all my like recipes, because we'd been doing farmers markets for so long. People really relied on our balms and things. So I wanted to put everything and all the nurturing recipes people had shared with us into a book as well. And I think for Maggie and I both, and any memoirist, writing memoir is therapy. And it also allows you to give to others, and it clears your head so that you can then go on to new adventures. So you can think things through.
Well, you'd done something that was a private action that became public, and you wanted to share. But I can't imagine a situation where you have that many people trampsing through your own life without it being. I mean, you have to expose yourself to well, there's a vulnerability there, but there's people who are coming in with their own set of baggage. You know.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why the book is hilarious.
Yes.
Because it's this, oh my gosh, like now this happened, then this happened. And, and you get to understand people more. And through other people, you understand yourself more. And like, it's just super fun, but challenging. And also all us humans, like we're all odd in our own way. And then you have nature that's pretty odd too. And also nourishing, and just the whole beauty that you get from the land and that energy and that replenishment. But as I like kind of work through what had happened, I'm like, wow, maybe actually nature owns me more than I knew. And she was getting from me what she wanted as well. Like, we were regenerating a farm that had been stripped by hand 150 years ago. And here I was trying to put all the plants back. So I was like, wow, like I was captivated and captured as well. So,
well, the nature will teach you, and nature doesn't necessarily like me. I always feel like nature's out to get me. I'm not kidding. When you said, if you put me back in the 1900s, I wouldn't be all that good. I'd be a great chief of staff to like the warlord. If once we can get to that stage of having enough warlord society in place. But I mean, I look at Werner Herzog and his approach to nature, where it's just this feckin' thing that wants to kill us all. I mean, forgive me, but farm life teaches you things. Where did you move from saying, okay, I'm learning from the land, to I'm fighting with it, and it's time to wrap this up?
Yeah, I don't think like it was a fight with the land.
Okay.
It was more that I would like to have kept doing it all for myself, but without 10,000 people.
And you were raising 3 kids too.
Yeah. And,
so.
But it's, like a magnificent life, really.
I almost forgot. I need to put this up. I want to make sure that people know where to find you, Anna. So you're writing about something, both of you as memoirists. I mean, Anna, you've got wake up before the sun, go to bed after the sun. You've got people coming through your life who you never met. That some of them become dear friends. Some of them are humorous or to obnoxious. You got your family. You got animals, plants. You have species, genus, and phylum. Like, how do you keep track in a memoir kind of framework? Like, how do you titrate it down to the story that's to be told?
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, like, Australia has more than 2,000 species of native bees.
Mm-hmm.
And on the farm, we grew more than 200 species of plant. And the thing is, I could remember plant and bee scientific names, but I would meet someone and I could not remember their name. Like, so your brain like just filters different things in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the memoir, I suppose the things that made it into the memoir were the things that I could not get out of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
They were the stories that kept, like, the different incidents that happened, the funny ones and the sad ones. Those were the ones that ended up in the memoir.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's the ones that stick with you, and why wouldn't they be what you want to share forward? So, Maggie, how do you vet what to tell as a memoirist?
So when you do your first draft, you just spew it all onto the page.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on my second book right now, and I've managed to just get it all on the page. But then you go back and you actually, you just have to filter out the fluff. And I had a mentor who basically said, people want to read about the ordinary. They want to see how you handle the ordinary things in life, but they want to know it in intimate detail. So it's about taking those and actually providing a real insight into how I live that day. I mean, I also had some very practical limitations in that I limit my family's inclusion in it because I just wanted to protect their privacy. So I made sure that everything was all about me. But it was really going into the real nitty-gritty and realizing that there was also, for me, some stories I was not going to be able to translate to the page.
Yeah.
I actually have one chapter that's about what the inside of my head actually looks like. And it sounds like a fairy story when I tell it, because that's that's the easiest way for people to actually be able to relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to just be really, I think, pedantic and go, is this actually going to drive my story forward? Is this going to tell people and help them to understand more about what it means to live with DID? Mm-hmm. So I think for any memoirist, they have to go, what am I trying to communicate? And everything that you do has to actually support that and build that picture.
So we talk a lot about empathy in reading. You know, the library, the bookstore, the I'm going to give you this book because I loved it. You know, we're gonna get lucky and trip over a good book with a book club or a reading circle. But reading builds empathy, is what they always say. And the memoirist is the one who's on the tightrope, even more so than a novelist or anyone else. Yeah. I mean, the courage to publish. Maggie, I want to talk to you about that a little bit, but also, Anna, I want to come back around to the work that you do with the Alliance of Independent Authors, with that courage to publish. So, I mean, Maggie, you're working on book 2. What's that one like?
That one is about intergenerational trauma, and I'm trying to. What my thread is our adoption story. So I've got 3 adopted kids from the Philippines, and what I do is I tell that story, but I also question, how can I, as somebody with complex trauma and mental health challenges, am I going to be able to parent well? Or am I going to end up doing what my parents did to me? Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful story. It's got a lot of hope in it, because the thing that I come back to is I love my children, and they're actually the ones that have inspired me to be able to raise them well, because they're full of hope. They're full of life. And so if my kids can be that way. So anyway, that's what that story is all about. And it's got some dark moments, but it's also about exploring what it means to live with hope, because of family and those that are important to you.
That's really lovely. So
with Maggie as well, like, we talk about courage. Like, Maggie, you came out at 60 as having multiple personality disorder. You know, like, that's incredible courage to have been hiding that from so many people for so long, and then to step out and be like to everyone, well, actually, here's some things you didn't know about me and the other people I live with in my head. It's so incredibly courageous. And incredibly well written as well.
Oh, thank you.
So let's talk about the Alliance of Independent Authors and your work. I mean, you're a nonfiction, you're a mentor for nonfiction authors. That's
yeah.
So
and
like me.
Yeah. Well, how do you work with people who might be? I mean, I'm sure you got people who are like, my book is the book. Like, this is it's the great Australian novel. We're gonna go. But like, how do you let people move from scared into action?
Yeah. Well, firstly, like the Alliance of Independent Authors, it's a global organization. So they have a lot of resources to help people just get started, and just fabulous. So I'm a nonfiction advisor to them because I'm tapped in around the world to nonfiction and memoir. And yeah, so like we all know everyone does have a story, but it's about telling that story well. And really honing in on what is unique about you, what is your voice, and it's about truth. So as a judge of like book awards, a lot of books come through and you're like, I've read that one before, because they're not putting in the personal stuff or they're not working on their craft. So it's when you get that beautiful combination of raw talent or raw passion, that's when you get these books that change lives.
That's right. And then being able to give the right kind of feedback, the right kind of constructive criticism in that space. It's additive. It's not intended to tear down.
Yeah,
I think that's a really important attitude for an author to have. It doesn't matter how many books you put out. You always need the input of someone else to give that objective perspective. And when you've got a trusted group of people, I mean, Anne and I both have that in our lives, you trust them. They're going to be critical and they're probably going to rip a couple things to shreds, but they do it because they want your work to be better. They're not trying to tear you down. And I love that sort of relationship. That's
real cool. All right, so we're coming around the horn here. Got to wrap up and sing for our supper. We talked a little bit about how things are going in libraries in Australia. How things have not necessarily always gone really well. But the library as access point, and that was for you, Maggie. In terms of how things were in the States, and I appreciate you sharing that. Frankly, what's the role of reading in your lives as writers? For my last question, I mean. Some people are they sit down, they write, they're obsessed. They don't necessarily read. I don't know about you two. So Maggie, let me ask you first.
I always need to be reading, and I'm constantly reading memoir or something fun that somebody has suggested to me. Because sometimes if you're reading just memoir, especially traumatic memoir, it just gets too heavy. So I read some light stuff, but one of my first mentors, and I'll mention her name, Lee Kaufman. She's a wonderful Aussie. And she said, you need to be reading to see how other people are writing and to get ideas. Because in one sense, there's nothing new under the sun as far as how you write. But what you do to interpret that for your story is what makes it unique. So I'm always reading something new. And I've got about 6 books that I've got on my list right now, and one that I'm about halfway through that I'm just loving. So
that's fantastic. What is it? Can I ask?
It's called, oh gosh, I can't believe you're going to ask me that.
I know the feeling. I do. Don't worry.
It's by Ailsa Piper, and she's an Australian author and a friend, and it's about her loss of her husband and her father. But she deals with it in such a beautiful lyrical way, and it's full of hope and it's full of love and positivity, and I'm really enjoying it.
That's a great tip. Thank you.
For Life. It's called For Life.
For Life.
Yeah.
Great. Anna, how much you bring us home? What you reading these days? How much is are you a reader?
Oh my gosh, yes! Like I inhale books, like absolutely. But also, I have a superpower. I'm a speed reader. So
are you really?
Yeah, so
like
that
legit?
actually really helps. Well, like legit, I can power through books. Yeah.
Okay, because you're up before the sun doing the beekeeping, and you're up late. You got 2 kids. How do you get through it? Come on.
Don't worry. The kids have moved on now, so I'm fine. I went to the library, put the kids in, got some books out.
Perfect.
So, but I recently worked with an author who stopped going to school very young because he was a world #1 tennis player. Now, he does not read books, but he has written the most compelling electric memoir about life as a sporting prodigy, because he's just got this raw take on the world, and it's so different and so funny. So there are people I know who don't read books, who can still end up writing a good book, but they're in the minority. I think that's rare compared to people who read. But it doesn't mean you have to go to university and get a Master of Arts to be a great writer. Right. You can just practice and practice. And I just say start that first book, because you never know when the real book you want to write is going to come along, and you want to be ready to write that one.
I think that's a great way to end it. That was fantastic advice. So, Anna, Maggie, what a treat to be with you tonight. I get to meet people that I never would otherwise. It would be difficult to trip over you, with this great remove otherwise. And it's a real nice thing for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, team, I got to do my closing remarks, and then I want to see you in the green room. Okay.
Lovely. Thanks for having us.
100%. So EveryLibrary Rapid Response Fund, this is my commercial. We will not take money, by the way. We're the National Political Action Committee for Libraries. We're not taking money from foreign nationals. So neither of you have to feel guilty about donating. Okay. But to the folks in the United States of America, everylibrary.org/rapid. We're trying to put as much money as we can to work on these crises right now, because the world is so noisy. You got to break through. And it takes some advertising dollars. I don't like it. I don't like that we have to do that. I'd love to go viral. We've never been able to go viral because the world is so crazy. How do you put our messages about libraries and librarians, about readers and reading, in front of more people who care like you do? I mean, you're watching this thing. How do we do that? It's everylibrary.org/rapid. Throw a little bit of money at us. We'll use it to help support those libraries. Okay, again, Maggie, Anna, thank you so much for tonight.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Good luck over there.
Yeah, very good. We're gonna go for it. So, okay, I'm gonna put up the card. We'll all wave goodbye when that goes up, and I'll see you in the green room.